Oh, you are still here. See, I told you it would be worth it. Okay, you just saw how Glean and SnapLogic are joining forces to create a more connected, composable enterprise. So let's bring some of that to life right now. In this next session, Aptia takes us inside a real deployment, sharing how they're using SnapLogic's AI agents to transform their operations and drive real business outcomes. This is not just SnapLogic, this is a real customer and how they're using the technology. So let's hand it over to Aptia.
Good morning and good evening. We are excited to be here. Thanks for having us. My name is Ramsay Troutman, and I work at Aptia, and I'm an implementation leader, primarily responsible for implementing new clients on our U.S. health platform. Mike, can you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Mike Wertz. I'm an engineering leader here at Aptia. I drive AI and automation initiatives within our technology group. My focus is mainly on innovation and efficiency across all of our systems.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike. So let me just start with a brief background of who Aptia is. So we're actually a recent spinoff almost 2 years ago, but we have a long history. It's a great mix of experience and expertise, along with the excitement and energy that comes with a new startup. We are a trusted provider of pension administration services in the UK and employee health benefits in the US. We have offices throughout the UK and the United States, and also are supported by some shared services in India and Portugal. We cover over 7 million people with our services and more than 1,100 clients. And we deliver efficient and reliable solutions that ensure smooth management of pension plans and employee benefits programs. If you want to learn more about this, please go to aptia-group.com. You can check us out, or you can follow us on LinkedIn. There's lots of excitement and energy there for sure. So if I talk a little bit about the UK pension and US health spaces, they're both complex to administer. And it's certainly hard to do with both quality for our clients and their employees. We here at Aptia are proud that we do this quite well, as measured by Net Promoter Score and client satisfaction and customer satisfaction scores. But it is complex. It takes a lot of work. Mike, I assume from a technology perspective, it's fairly complex too.
Yeah, absolutely. So, in the interest of time, I'm just going to speak to the U.S. health side, which you said, Ramsay, is extremely complex, along with the pension. But for benefits administration by nature, it's highly interconnected. We interface with a lot of internal, external systems. We handle a lot of inbound, outbound data flows to and from our core system. And these data sets are huge. They involve demographic data, employment data, dependent data, enrollments, carrier integrations, payroll deductions, compliance regulations, and even client configuration data. And we could go on and on. That's just a partial list. And we deal with a lot of sensitive data. So obviously we need to make sure that that's as secure as possible. Like, dealing with any kind of PI data, you have to take those guardrails into consideration. But we also have to make sure it's extremely accurate in the benefits administration space. So any errors or any bad data that we might ingest can directly impact an employee's benefit coverage, payroll deductions, and even our regulatory compliance. So that's it, at a very high level. There's much, much more to it than that, but I hope that covers it. And Ramsay, I'll kind of turn it back over to you to walk through our journey on how we simplified at least one of these ben admin flows.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. So Mike and I have been working together for over 20 years now, but our journey for purposes of today's discussion starts 3 to 4 years ago. We had an interesting challenge in that we had about 100,000 employees. We were our client employees that we were moving from one application to another. Each one of those employees had the potential for a number of dependents, beneficiaries. On the U.S. side, we typically have 5 to 10 benefits each per employee, with a number of different data sets for each one of those benefits. So you can quickly see how this quickly equated to tens of millions of data points we had to get from point A to point B. And as many of you who are familiar with data and data consumption know, there's really no two systems are the same. So even a standard data point like social security number can have different table names. So you have to do some mapping there. And then there's some fields where you might have a Y that means one thing in one system, and you need to have that value be a 1 to produce the same results. So we had some data mapping as well. So we had a large volume of data to move. We had to do some reformatting, some data mapping, and then a lot of data checks that come with that to make sure that you have good, clean data. So we had to, look at the different tool sets that we had. And when we did that, we weren't super confident. So Mike, maybe you can just share sort of where we were those years ago with the tool sets we had and why we thought maybe we needed to embrace SnapLogic with that.
Yeah, we've come a long way in 3 years. So after an evaluation process, we purchased SnapLogic really as a replacement for Data Integrator. Our initial task for that was just to convert some of the Data Integrator workflows into SnapLogic, and these were simple workflows, ETL jobs, minimal transformation, nothing really overly complex with what we were doing. So that this took a few months, and as we went through that, we were converting these jobs. We gradually started to notice there was a lot of real value that we could use SnapLogic for. We started exploring different things, and it led us to explore additional snap packs, things we hadn't used before or even considered. So we were going through more of an exploratory phase while at the same time getting some of our Data Integrator jobs converted over. And I think, Ramsay, it was about that time, luckily, you and your team introduced the problem statement for the conversion data. And that to me was just a perfect fit of all the things that we had learned up to date and some of the things we would like to experiment with and explore a little further. So I think from there, we started working together, focusing on building out a proof of concept for the conversion data. And I think, Ramsay, you'd agree that it was kind of during that time period that we started, our thought process started to change in regard to what we could do and where we could go with this.
Yeah, for sure. And it was nice that you've done some of this work in your past when we worked together on the business side. So you understood the problem statement pretty quickly. Maybe you can tell me a little bit about some of the challenges that we kind of had with the way that we used to convert data versus now what you were starting to see and we started to talk about with the potential new solution.
Yeah. So there was a lot of challenges the old way, right? So the traditional data conversions that we've done before, it was relied heavily on legacy ETL tools. It was really rigid, time consuming, a lot of manual processes that, just as an example, comparing one set of data to another set of data within Excel, as bad as that sounds. And so it made it prone to human error, right? So the other negative part of that was every time we'd have a new integration, that usually meant writing new code or coming up with some other additional process. So just increasing complexity and risk almost every time we did this. So with SnapLogic, we solved some of those challenges. It being a low code platform, we took advantage of a lot of the built-in connectors. We were able to ingest multiple data formats, CSV, JSON, XML, things like that, where it would just plug it in without coding, or doing, small amounts of configuration within those snaps. So that gave us a huge boost and a huge leg up as far as speed and just a lot of efficiency. And likewise, instead of maintaining massive amounts of code, changing that as custom code and updating it, we could set our configurations and make things a little more adaptable and dynamic. We were also able to, as we were going through the conversion process, we were able to build some validation rules quickly, even down to the individual level. We took advantage of pipeline parameters to make things more dynamic. As an example, if the format changed, we could change a parameter in the pipeline and, go a different route within the pipeline. But I think the bigger impact was, more than just solving the data conversion challenges that we have from the past to the present. Again, it did a little more shifting in how we thought of how we think about some of our existing process automations outside of the conversion process.
So yeah, I'm pretty sure, Mike, that we only had like probably one or two conversations once you started talking about what you had seen before we're like, hey, let's go do this. Let's give it a shot. Can you talk a little about like just kind of how you get started with kind of the idea to actually creating?
Yeah. It's I think it's like with anything else you develop, right? You want to understand the problems, understand the challenges you have. I think the biggest that we had with the conversion is going back to the multiple data formats. You mentioned no two data sets are alike. We were getting multiple data formats, multiple structures, different data types, things like that. And on top of that, we wanted to, we had to load this into a massive relational database that had all kinds of parent-child relationships we had to consider. And we wanted to build something reusable, right? So that was kind of our key criteria to get us over that hump of, the traditional way versus what we could do with SnapLogic. So we focused a little bit more on building a reusability. And as I mentioned, those out of the box snaps gave us a huge leg up. Using pipeline parameters, solved a lot of problems for us. And then one of the other challenges was mapping data. So, data is going to come in from a client in field A, and we need to map it to our schema and make sure that those things match up. Not an easy thing to do if you think about that from a coding perspective. So we came up with a solution of building an external mapping document that we could read directly into the pipeline that was converting the data. So without going too much into that, that was a pretty big accomplishment. And then, transforming, validating the data, we had going down to that validation on the field level, a lot of huge advantages we saw with SnapLogic, versus coding this or, writing these giant expressions that would do this for us. We were able to do that really quickly. But I think the iteration process, Ramsay, is really where we had the big advantage, right? So the way we designed and structured this pipeline, we were able to go through multiple tests. I think sometimes we were running a test every hour or less when we needed, because one of the things we did to allow us to do that was we directly outputted a file once we found a row that was invalid. We could evaluate these things. In the data before it was loaded, we had a report for that too. So we could compare these things and say, we missed a validation here. Great. Let's go at it. Let's retest it. I mean, that was, 10, 15 minutes, and we could run another test through there and start that. So I think it gave us a huge boost as far as that agile testing process that we could adapt to quickly.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think partly because of that iteration, we were both able to see very quickly that it was going to work great. And one of the things that fascinated me was kind of how you could magically sort of hit one button and you'd be extracting data, you'd be doing data checks, you'd format, map, load, validate other business rules, and it would just sort of happen all as one thing, whereas those were very distinct individual steps before. So that was pretty wild for me. So anyway, to conclude with this, we were able to see that, we could build a multi-step process that had repeatable and dependable outcomes. And the project was a great success, and data was the cleanliness and speed with which we could do that was part of the reason why. And we definitely didn't stop there. So this is now the gears were sort of turning for both of us, and I saw that, hey, this is a process where we have those same sort of 7 steps that we have to do on every new client that we bring in. So let's go automate that for every net new client, above and beyond just this one big project we had. So we started working on a number of different things, and that was able to drive our innovation forward quite a bit. And I think too, as we started to iterate on some of these other things, Mike, you started to see, hey, there's some more agent capabilities here. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, when Agent Creator came out, or when it was first released, we were in a similar situation as with the first use case we described there, right? We didn't know much about it, but we saw a lot of potential, and we started exploring that and what it could do. The question we asked ourselves is, hey, there's this Agent Creator thing in here, and AI is kind of a new buzzword. What can we do with this, right? What can we actually do with this and apply it? So through a lot of research, we found that we could integrate within our existing AWS environment. So we work within an AWS environment. There was a lot of hooks into that we could take advantage of, or as an example, AWS Bedrock. So that opened the door for us, and we quickly realized Agent Creator was, was a powerful AI integration platform that we could use. We can connect, AI models with our business systems. Some of the things that we've already done and kind of that traditional ETL methodology I talked about, and we along the lines of as we were going through that, we actually found out we could execute remote Python scripts. So that was a big boost for us. So we now had the ability to build automated, intelligent workflows, and our mindset now was that there's very little off the table of what we could do, what we could try to solve. So we now had a foundation for AI-driven automation across all kinds of use cases. But the problem at this point was similar to what we had when we first started with SnapLogic, was that we needed a real life use case from the business. And Ramsay, that's where you and your team came in again to partner with us.
Yeah. This really started our next wave of innovation. And we started working on some new business ideas to do that. And one of those was, and there's a bunch of them for sure, but we get information from clients and brokers and consultants in various forms, PowerPoints and emails and all that. And we have to take that information, consume it, and put it into different formats and configure it and test it and put it on the web and the IVR. So all the thing that make up kind of what we do and how we provide our service. And, the business case became, how do we automatically read that, reformat it, and get it into a different spot, which at a highest of levels is what we were already doing. It was sort of just a different problem set of data, which was pretty neat. And I think it was around this time too that we were becoming Aptia. And it was interesting because we were sort of exploring this new technology that was opening our eyes to a lot of things. And we were hearing from our new CEO, Bala, who was basically saying, we're a firm that can think, let's think boldly, let's be unconstrained in the things that we can do. So it's a pretty neat sort of mix of those two things happening at once. Mike, maybe you can show one of those things that we created.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, before I share my screen out, one of the things when we started going through that proof of concept and working through to try to get that built out, we understood the concept fully. We knew what we wanted to do. We just didn't exactly know how to do it. So again, while we understood the concept's capabilities, we were extremely new to it. And we partnered with SnapLogic. So we took that one use case, that single use case, that more that document to document extraction piece, and we worked with SnapLogic to get that built out. So that core focus was on document to document processing. And I will share that out. Bear with me for 1 second. So this is the core pipeline that we built out. I'm not going to go through each and every snap here, but I'm going to give you the high level and then focus on really where Agent Creator and the Gen AI piece came into this. So we're reading an email essentially here, right? And we're extracting the email information and the attachment from that email and routing it based on if it's a PDF, if it's a document, and original text, if it's just text. And then we parse that out and we do a couple of different things here, but this is really where I wanted to focus on. And this is really the heart of everything. So we built this to be a little more dynamic as far as what Ramsay and team needed, so that they could do different things with this as they came up. So basically, these are different use cases. And what each one of these are is this child pipeline is passing in the information that we're looking at, or we want the large language model to look at. In this case, Amazon Bedrock. We're using Anthropic Claude. And then the prompts. So the prompts themselves is really where I think we made a huge breakthrough as far as we partnered with the business team, with Ramsay's team, to build these prompts out. They are the experts in what they want to find, and they are the experts on what they're looking for. And that way we didn't lose anything in translation of that. So if you think of traditional coding or anything we do traditionally, it's getting requirements from a business unit, interpreting those requirements, and hopefully we get it right. This is just going into the prompt and building these prompts out. Now, this probably looks a little more complicated than it is if you've never seen it before, but this is where Ramsay and team really excelled. And as a secondary benefit of this, it built their skill level up. They learned a new skill. They learned prompt engineering. They got better and better at it. So this is really it. And once we have the prompts, we pass that into Anthropic Claude. Again, as you can see, there's not a whole lot of, there's no coding. We're just passing data into it and configuring these snaps, and we get the return back. So that's really it at a high level. I think this is, it seems simplified because I truly believe it really is. And that's the proof of concept we built out. And going back to this again, we can build out as many as we need to here. So we built kind of with the help of SnapLogic and partnering with SnapLogic, we built out a model that we could use for other use cases.
It was successful because the feedback is immediate. So you try something and you hit a button and you get the result and you try it again. So it was very sort of simple, but we enjoyed doing it for sure. Well, all that gets us kind of to where we are today. So we've got a number of initiatives. We're pushing faster. We're sort of doing more. We're thinking more about data in terms of information. Kind of like I said, we're getting information from lots of sources, and we can basically bring it in-house and manipulate it and get it to different places. We're thinking about agents sort of from a Q&A perspective, chat agent, risk agents that can look at project plans and help advise on risks or where you're falling behind on tasks and things like that. So it's really speeding up our innovation, which is a lot of fun for us for sure. Mike, what are some of the ideas you're thinking about?
Yeah, so I think from a technology perspective, right, it's really made a shift to more agent-centric approach and automation efforts. Traditionally, when we first 3 years ago, when we started with SnapLogic, we really just focused on the traditional ETL, those types of workflows and things like that. So Agent Creator, I think it's really opened up a whole new world for us, extending our automation capabilities further to take advantage of AI. A great example of what we can do with this now and some of the things we're looking at is going back to that conversion use case. How do we tie in Agent Creator and AI and build that intelligence into it? Again, allowing for the business to fine tune a lot. There's not as much reliance on developers or coding or redeveloping and retesting and things like that. We've got a tremendously fast cycle that we can work with the business to make sure that before we move anything to production, it's as close to 100% as we can get it. So again, it's unlocked a lot of possibilities, new ways of thinking, and it's really it's rapidly modernizing our data processes in ways that we just couldn't do that before.
Yeah, no, it's fun. I love all of that. Now, as a business guy, ops guy, I do always think too about sort of the risk and control side of things, and you have to have an eye on that at all times too. So one of the examples, or one of the questions I have, Mike, is around data integrity and the risk of hallucinations. I know we talked about that before. A while back. Can you just share sort of how, from a tech perspective, you keep an eye on that, or how what we're doing doesn't concern you too much, and just kind of what the mix there is?
Yeah, definitely. So, AI is, I'm sure everybody knows, it's evolving rapidly. It seems daily now. Something new comes out, or some sort of new method or technology. So I don't think we could ever be overly cautious about data accuracy, especially in our field, Ramsay, that we just can't afford that. And until we can eliminate fully hallucinations with absolute certainty, I believe there should always be some sort of human review or some sort of rule-based validation step, for any critical data before it's committed. I think that's just a must-have, and until again it can be proven with 100% that we don't have to worry about it, it should always be done. For our POC and some of the other things that we've done, we've tried to actively mitigate those hallucinations and the data integrity issues with that iterative process, you made a good point about that, turning that over to the business and allowing the business and to test that almost immediately and do that cycle back and forth, right? Perfect those prompts, make sure the data is coming back and is exactly what we want to see. We have the ability now that we can do a lot more testing before something goes to production than we used to, right? So we can make sure that those things are focused and the specific information that users are looking for are coming back, and hallucinations are minimal. So I think that approach, we maintain a trust in AI-driven automation. Having the user actually be able to go in, or the business team be able to go in and see that real time, right, allows for that continuous improvement and builds that trust.
Yeah, and I think it allowed us to transform, or at least start to transform the workforce from doing a bunch of the work to reviewing it, right? It's allowed our specialists to become peer reviewers and less doers, which is really honing the expertise that they have. So it's a pretty another aspect of the journey that's great to watch. Kind of the second component, one is around sort of the data hallucination thing. The other thing, obviously, we have to be super careful of, and I think everyone does, is data privacy. We work with PHI. So Mike, maybe you can just share a little bit around what protections and comforts we have there.
Yeah. So there's broader security measures everywhere, right? And it's beyond my clearance to talk to, but there's firewalls and things like that are kind of making sure that data is clean and good coming in and things like that. So I'll kind of talk more toward the SnapLogic security of it, right? So it gives you a little bit of an added layer. So think of SnapLogic as the development layer of security within a larger security framework. Again, firewalls, encryption, access controls, internal, external transmissions, things like that. When it gets down to the developer level at SnapLogic, we took additional steps to lock down sensitive data at the developer level. We have role-based, SnapLogic allows for role-based security. We can restrict access, so only authorized users can work with specific pipelines. In addition, there's security groups. We build security groups, only allow, say, a development team A can only see what development team A does. Development team B can only see what development team B does. And if we need to get down to the individual person level that handles live data through the SnapLogic interface, we can lock that down as well. So it allows us to prevent, any kind of unauthorized user at that level from viewing or interacting with sensitive data workflows or the data itself. So to your point, Ramsay, I totally agree. We can't be overly cautious about that. And the more we protect our data, the better we're going to be.
Awesome. Well, as usual, you're sort of checking all the boxes and helping me drive things forward. I don't love typing things, so the only thing you haven't been able to give me yet, Mike, is my ability just to talk and have it do everything for me.
Yeah. So we we had a demo from SnapLogic a few weeks ago on the voice AI and how we would build voice AI into some of our solutions. But just as a disclaimer, I'm no expert on voice AI, building that out or anything else. So if anyone's interested in diving deeper in that, obviously, reach out to SnapLogic. I'm sure they provide more details, and the demo was great that we had. So, I highly encourage that. But I think the easiest way for us to think about it after going through that is, we'll take the example of a chatbot. There's an input layer where a user, as you mentioned, Ramsay, if you had to type something in, right? That's that input layer where the voice AI agent, as it's integrated, would lay. So you'd have that layer for the voice AI agent, or your layer for the input, if you want to think of it that way. So instead of written requests, you'd have spoken requests, or you could have both, depending on how you design that pipeline. And I think what that highlights a little bit more is just the integration itself, right? So that's one of the things we found through this whole journey, using SnapLogic, just being able to integrate all kinds of technologies. Whereas before it's just a very complicated process, a lot of coding, a lot of programs, things like that. You have this one integration tool that can bring all these things together.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, I can't wait for all that. I think we're about at time, so just wanted to finish up by saying, we're still catching up to the technology, but based on the rate of innovation these days, I think we'll always be doing that. And honestly, that's sort of part of the fun, is figuring out how to just keep innovating and growing. But I know our velocity has been increasing month over month over month. So it's just it's a fun journey to be on. I think you've heard us say that a number of times. It's a journey, and we're certainly on it, and I'm looking forward to the next chapters of that. So thank you to SnapLogic for having us, and we hope that you all enjoyed the discussion. Thank you.